Good morning, everybody. I love, what is it? It's wonderful to spend our Monday talking about workers' rights, right? The first day of work, right? So it's great to be here. We have a wonderful panel that is going to share with you the different leaders who are going to be sharing with you campaigns that are underway. Many of them who have long trajectories, decades of work, to share with us both what is the campaign, but also some of the lessons learned. And for myself, this is a very important aspect of our work in terms of fighting for immigrant workers' rights. When we talk about immigrant rights, you cannot talk about immigrant rights without really recognizing the fact that many individuals move across, leave their families in order to find a better economic opportunity and to ultimately work. And the number one right for a worker is the ability to work, because to find employment, to be able to keep their job. And then obviously wage and hour issues that follow. Immigrant workers in California have increased since 1994 by over 40%. We have in California a situation for immigrant workers that place them as part of the 3.7 million low-wage workers earning less than $10 an hour. They are also part of the over 2 million underground economy workers that work in all different fields, including in fields such as street vending, many times not considered part of the regular industries. Immigrant workers are earning 26% less than their native-born counterparts in the same work. And for immigrant workers, even in the high-end industries or with college degrees, they're still earning 8% less than their native-born counterparts. Even in areas when you talk about high-tech workers or highly skilled workers in California, they're still earning less than their counterparts. Immigrant workers face many complications, including the growing and cruel immigration enforcement that are furthering diminishing their rights. And I just want to give you a couple of examples of what we're talking about in terms of immigration enforcement. In 2010, we responded to a worksite raid at Terra Universal, because the call was about a raid that had occurred at a factory where workers were being picked up in 2010, and I want to repeat the number, in the year 2010, were being picked up at this worksite where hundreds of workers were taken and put in detention. In response to what we were looking obviously at the immigration raid and trying to get those workers out of the raid. What we didn't realize and only discovered in partnership with the ACLU was that most of these workers that had just been raided upon were also the victims of gross violations of workers' rights, from discrimination in terms of their payment, doing the same job with same workers, but had an actual red dot on their file denoting that they were undocumented to make sure that they were paid less. One worker who spoke up, Osvel Andrade, who then, in speaking, who was not caught up in the raid, but was one of the workers who was also undocumented, but who had the courage to speak up, to talk about all the systematic discrimination that they suffered in this place that now had been raided upon. Osvel Andrade, after speaking up, the manager who was actually being an employer who was actually being investigated around the whole issue of immigration violations, he sent immigration to go pick him up. And guess what? Immigration went to knock on his door to try to detain and deport him. But he fought back, and Osvel Andrade is just an example of what we believe is the courage of workers like courageous workers of the Walmart warehouses that are fighting back and saying, no, I'm going to speak up and I'm going to stand up for my rights. Or about the Club 907 workers, women who for years and years had been literally cheated out of their wages, who also spoke up after an immigration raid, again, targeted to the employer. One of the, I think the other complication in terms of immigration policy is secure communities, and we're not going to necessarily talk about it right now, but I think for many street vendors, one of the most dangerous jobs to have as right now is to be a street vendor in Los Angeles and across the state, which means that if you are detained and arrested for selling in the streets, your punishment is not just a $247 or $150 infraction. It's actually the ticket to deportation. So all this definitely has further complicated the situation for workers. But finally, I wanted to say, and I think this is what we're going to speak today about, is the courage of workers. And I think Maria Elena spoke of it very clearly. The reason that we have these campaigns is because we have workers all over the state of California who are speaking up for themselves and for their families, who are part of these amazing campaigns that just motivate you to keep working harder, to give it your best, and to fight back with all the elected officials, with the administration officials at the state or at the national level, so that things actually change. And so it is my pleasure to right now introduce you to some of the leaders of these campaigns. And again, I want to say we're talking about it today, but the work that they're describing is work that's been ongoing for years and years, and it's never done because we don't have the kind of respect and dignity afforded to immigrant workers that they should. Our first presenter is Reshma Shamasander, who's the executive director of the California Immigrant Policy Center. Many of us really are very depend on the California Immigrant Policy Center for a lot of the policy work, their representation in Sacramento, who will be talking about E-Verify and the Employment Acceleration Act. After her, we're going to have Giv Gashguli, who is the political and legislative director of the United Farm Workers, their third vice president, who's going to be talking about farm worker campaigns this year, but really they're connected to the work that you've been doing as part of the USW for years and years and years, and to ensure that farm workers are treated with the respect and afforded the rights that they deserve and the wages they deserve, I think, most importantly. And finally, with Andrea Cristina Mercano, who is the political director of Mujeres Unidas y Actives. I would say, I have to just say I am just so honored and so thankful and appreciative for the leadership that she's taken with the California Domestic Worker Bill of Rights. She's going to tell us status, where it's at, and how far, what we need to do in order to get it over the hump with the governor. So you guys are in for a treat in terms of just all the information that they come to share with us.